difficult to walk at one and the same time many paths of life. There is geometry in the humming of the string. You should make great things, not promising great things. Power is the near neighbor of necessity. A blow from your friend is better than a kiss from your enemy. Friends are as companions on a journey, who ought to aid each other to persevere in the road to a happier life. Practice justice in word and deed, and do not get in the habit of acting thoughtlessly about anything. Choose always the way that seems the best, however rough it may be. Custom will soon render it easy and agreeable. Friends share all things. Number rules the universe. Declining from the public ways, walk in unfrequented paths. All is number. As soon as laws are necessary for men, they are no longer fit for freedom. Anger begins in folly, and ends in repentance. Reason is immortal, all else mortal. Above the cloud with its shadow is the star with its light. Salt is born of the purest parents, the sun and the sea. Silence is better than unmeaning words. Above all things, respect yourself. No man is free who cannot control himself. Choose rather to be strong of soul than strong of body. Let no one persuade you by word or deed to do or say whatever is not best for you. The oldest, shortest words, yes and no, are those which require the most thought. As long as men massacre animals, they will kill each other. In anger we should refrain both from speech and action. Educate the children and it won't be necessary to punish the men. Rest satisfied with doing well, and leave others to talk of you as they please. A man is never as big as when he is on his knees to help a child. There is geometry in the humming of the strings. There is music in the spacing of the spheres. Do not say a little in many words, but a great deal in few. Be silent or let thy words be worth more than silence. No one is free who has not obtained the empire of himself. No man is free who cannot command himself.
Then you are the strongest person in the world. You cannot lift the wage earner up by pulling the wage payer down. Commitment is what transforms a promise into reality. That some achieve great success is proof to all that others can achieve it as well. Let's have faith that right makes might, and in that faith let us, to the end, dare to do our duty as we understand it. Don't interfere with anything in the Constitution. That must be maintained, for it is the only safeguard of our liberties. My father taught me to work, he did not teach me to love it. Republicans are for both the man and the dollar, but in case of conflict the man before the dollar. You cannot build character and courage by taking away people's initiative and independence. Determine that the thing can and shall be done and then, find the way. Don't criticize them, they are just what we would be under similar circumstances. If this country is ever demoralized, it will come from trying to live without work. Those who write clearly have readers, those who write obscurely have commentators. Let no feeling of discouragement prey upon you, and in the end you are sure to succeed. Those who deny freedom to others deserve it not for themselves, and, under a just God, cannot retain it. If there is anything that links the human to the divine, it is the courage to stand by a principle when everybody else rejects it. The ballot is stronger than the bullet. The greatest fine art of the future will be the making of a comfortable living from a small piece of land. As I would not be a slave, so I would not be a master. This expresses my idea of democracy. Stand with anyone that is right, stand with him while he is right and part with him when he goes wrong. Hypocrite, the man who murdered his parents, and then pleaded for mercy on the grounds that he was an orphan. My great concern is not whether you have failed, but whether you are content with your failure. Be with a leader when he is right, stay with him when he is still right, but leave him when he is wrong. I do the very best I know how, the very best I can, and I mean to keep on doing so until the end. We should be too big to take offense and too noble to give it. No matter how much the cats fight, there always seem to be plenty of kittens. Achievement has no color. The probability that we may fail in the struggle ought not to deter us from the support of a cause we believe to be just. To ease another's heartache is to forget one's own. I am not concerned that you have fallen, I am concerned that you arise. The better part of one's life consists of his friendships. You can tell the greatness of a man by what makes him angry. You cannot help people permanently by doing for them what they could and should do for themselves. If this is coffee, please bring me some tea, but if this is tea, please bring me some coffee. You have to do your own growing no matter how tall your grandfather was. The Lord prefers common-looking people. That is why He made so many of them. It has been my experience that folks who have no vices have very few virtues. All I have learned, I learned from books. I do not think much of a man who is not wiser today than he was yesterday. It's not me who can't keep a secret. It's the people I tell that can't. I care not for a man's religion whose dog and cat are not the better for it. You cannot escape the responsibility of tomorrow by evading it today. I am in favor of animal rights as well as human rights. That is the way of a whole human being. Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. Every man's happiness is his own responsibility. I have always found that mercy bears richer fruits than strict justice. He has a right to criticize, who has a heart to help. Things may come to those who wait, but only the things left by those who hustle. No man has a good enough memory to be a successful liar. The best way to predict your future is to create it. The best thing about the future is that it comes one day at a time. I will prepare and someday my chance will come. I laugh because I must not cry, that is all, that is all. No man is poor who has a godly mother. Always bear in mind that your own resolution to succeed is more important than any one thing. I would rather be a little nobody than to be an evil somebody. Character is like a tree and reputation its shadow. All that I am or ever hope to be, I owe to my angel mother. If I were two-faced, would I be wearing this one? Be sure you put your feet in the right place, then stand firm. When you reach the end of your rope, tie a knot and hang on. I don't like that man. I must get to know him better. There are no bad pictures, that's just how your face looks sometimes. Those who look for the bad in people will surely find it. I am a slow walker, but I never walk back. Those who deny freedom to others deserve it not for themselves. When I do good, I feel good. When I do bad, I feel bad. That's my religion. I'm a success today because I had a friend who believed in me and I didn't have the heart to let him down. My concern is not whether God is on our side. My greatest concern is to be on God's side, for God is always right.
Absurd, then there is no hope for it. Life is a preparation for the future, and the best preparation for the future is to live as if there were none. The only real valuable thing is intuition. I believe in intuitions and inspirations. I sometimes feel that I am right. I do not know that I am. The only thing that you absolutely have to know is the location of the library. If there is any religion that could respond to the needs of modern science, it would be Buddhism. A true genius admits that she knows nothing. Common sense is the collection of prejudices acquired by age 18. If people are good only because they fear punishment and hope for reward, then we are a sorry lot indeed. You cannot simultaneously prevent and prepare for war. I love humanity, but I hate humans. The hardest thing in the world to understand is the income tax. Wisdom is not a product of schooling, but of the lifelong attempt to acquire it. Do not worry about your difficulties in mathematics. I can assure you mine are still greater. Look deep into nature, and then you will understand everything better. It has become appallingly obvious that our technology has exceeded our humanity. You can never solve a problem on the level on which it was created. I live in that solitude which is painful in youth, but delicious in the years of maturity. Only those who attempt the absurd can achieve the impossible. What a sad era when it is easier to smash an atom than a prejudice. Weakness of attitude becomes weakness of character. The most incomprehensible thing about the world is that it is at all comprehensible. I never think of the future, it comes soon enough. However rare true love may be, it is less so than true friendship. God does not play dice with the universe. Imagination is the highest form of research. If you want to live a happy life, tie it to a goal, not to people or things. Few are those who see with their own eyes and feel with their own hearts. A ship is always safe at the shore, but that is not what it is built for. Only a life lived for others is a life worthwhile. Nothing happens until something moves. Once we accept our limits, we go beyond them. I'd rather be an optimist and a fool than a pessimist and right. Out of clutter, find simplicity. Genius is 1% talent and 99% hard work. I never made one of my discoveries through the process of rational thinking. We all know that light travels faster than sound. That's why certain people appear bright until you hear them speak. Blind belief in authority is the greatest enemy of truth. Time is an illusion. Love is a better master than duty. I must be willing to give up what I am in order to become what I will be. The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. If the facts don't fit the theory, change the facts. Imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions. Peace cannot be kept by force, it can only be achieved by understanding. A question that sometimes drives me hazy: am I or are the others crazy? In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. Whoever is careless with the truth in small matters cannot be trusted with important matters. The pursuit of truth and beauty is a sphere of activity in which we are permitted to remain children all our lives. What is right is not always popular, and what is popular is not always right. Everything must be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. The best way to cheer yourself is to cheer somebody else up. Black holes are where God divided by zero. The measure of intelligence is the ability to change. Creativity is intelligence having fun. It is not that I'm so smart, but I stay with the questions much longer. Gravitation is not responsible for people falling in love. Great spirits have always encountered violent opposition from mediocre minds. You never fail until you stop trying. Any fool can know. The point is to understand. Try not to become a man of success. Rather become a man of value. If a cluttered desk is a sign of a cluttered mind, of what, then, is an empty desk a sign? I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious. If we knew what it was we were doing, it would not be called research, would it? Reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. Science without religion is lame, religion without science is blind. A clever person solves a problem. A wise person avoids it. Never memorize something that you can look up. Anyone who has never made a mistake has never tried anything new. Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. Logic will get you from A to Z, imagination will get you everywhere. If you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself.
have now come to pass. This new power, which has proved itself to be such a terrifying weapon of destruction, is harnessed for the first time for the common good of our community. I hope people will think very carefully about the future. For me, heaven is likely to be a bit of a come down. Football's a difficult business, and aren't they prima donnas? But it's a wonderful game. What were once only hopes for the future have now come to pass. I believe that there is a great fear in our generation of being labelled as priggish. It has perhaps always been the case that the waging of peace is the hardest form of leadership of all. I should like to be a horse. True patriotism doesn't exclude an understanding of the patriotism of others. They are not royal. They just happen to have me as their aunt. It's all to do with the training. You can do a lot if you're properly trained. Cowards falter, but danger is often overcome by those who nobly dare. Work is the rent you pay for the room you occupy on earth. It has turned out to be an annus horribilis. We all need to get the balance right between action and reflection. With so many distractions, it is easy to forget to pause and take stock. It has been women who have breathed gentleness and care into the hard progress of humankind. Family does not necessarily mean blood relatives, but often a description of a community, organization, or nation. Good memories are our second chance at happiness. When life seems hard, the courageous do not lie down and accept defeat. Instead, they are all the more determined to struggle for a better future. Let us not take ourselves too seriously. None of us has a monopoly on wisdom. Like all best families, we have our share of eccentricities, of impetuous and wayward youngsters, and of family disagreements. It is easy enough to define what the Commonwealth is not. Indeed, this is quite a popular pastime. The British Constitution has always been puzzling and always will be. The upward course of a nation's history is due in the long run to the soundness of heart of its average men and women. I have in sincerity pledged myself to your service, as so many of you are pledged to mine. These wretched babies don't come until they are ready. Throughout all my life and with all my heart I shall strive to be worthy of your trust. To what greater inspiration and counsel can we turn than to the imperishable truth to be found in this treasure house, the Bible? I have to be seen to be believed. At its heart, engineering is about using science to find creative, practical solutions. It is a noble profession. For many, Christmas is also a time for coming together. But for others, service will come first. It's all to do with the training. You can do a lot if you're properly trained. To all those who have suffered as a consequence of our troubled past, I extend my sincere thoughts and deep sympathy. At Christmas, I am always struck by how the spirit of togetherness lies also at the heart of the Christmas story.
Put their hands on the arc of history and bend it once more toward the hope of a better day. Change won't come from the top, change will come from mobilized grassroots. I realized that in some unspoken, still tentative way, she and I were already becoming a family. So, let us summon a new spirit of patriotism, of responsibility, where each of us resolves to pitch in and work harder and look over not only ourselves, but each other. Don't let your failures define you. We will restore science to its rightful place and wield technology's wonders to raise healthcare's quality and lower its cost. Religious freedom doesn't mean you can force others to live by your own beliefs. We are a people of improbable hope. This victory alone is not the change we seek, it is only the chance for us to make that change. Scientists and engineers ought to stand side by side with athletes and entertainers as role models. Be conscious of God and speak always the truth. Change has come. Reading is important. If you know how to read, then the whole world opens up to you. Although the principle of equality has always been self-evident, it has never been self-executing. All the education and good intentions in the world couldn't help plug up the holes in the universe or give you the power to change its blind, mindless course. You have the ability and gifts to do whatever you want. It is your turn now to change the world. Yes, we can. There's nobody to guide through the process of becoming a man, to explain to them the meaning of manhood. And that's a recipe for disaster. The best anti-poverty program is a world-class education. I think perhaps education doesn't do us much good unless it is mixed with sweat. For we know that our patchwork heritage is a strength, not a weakness. We may come from different places and have different stories, but we share common hopes, and one very American dream. Each path to knowledge involves different rules, and these rules are not interchangeable. At the moment that we persuade a child, any child, to cross that threshold, that magic threshold into a library, we change their lives forever, for the better. Each of us deserves the freedom to pursue our own version of happiness. No one deserves to be bullied. There is no excuse for not trying. It's only when you hitch your wagon to something larger than yourself that you realize your true potential. We may not be able to stop evil in the world, but how we treat one another is entirely up to us. Where you are right now doesn't have to determine where you'll end up. You can't let your failures define you. You have to let your failures teach you. Our stories may be singular, but our destination is shared. What makes a man is not the ability to have a child, but having the courage to raise one. A change is brought about because ordinary people do extraordinary things. We are the change we have been waiting for. In the face of impossible odds, people who love this country can change it. Nothing can stand in the way of the power of millions of voices calling for change. It's important to make sure that we're talking with each other in a way that heals, not in a way that wounds. While we breathe, we will hope. Change is never easy, but always possible. We will outstretch the hand if you unclench your fist. Words do inspire.
It's better to do a dull thing with style than a dangerous thing without it. It was better for me when I could imagine greatness in others, even if it wasn't always there. One can never be sure whether it's good poetry or bad acid. Any asshole can chase a skirt. Art takes discipline. Nothing can save you except writing. It keeps the walls from failing. In this land, some of us fuck more than we die, but most of us die better than we fuck. Writers are desperate people, and when they stop being desperate, they stop being writers. So it's always a process of letting go, one way or another. People run from rain, but sit in bathtubs full of water. I wish to weep, but sorrow is stupid. I wish to believe, but belief is a graveyard. The tigers have found me and I do not care. The trouble with a mask is it never changes. In the morning it was morning and I was still alive. It was like the beginning of life and laughter. It was the real meaning of the sun. Each man's hell is in a different place, mine is just up and behind my ruined face. I'm going, she said. I love you, but you're crazy, you're doomed. I want so much that is not here and do not know where to go. I drive around the streets an inch away from weeping, ashamed of my sentimentality and possible love. Some moments are nice, some are nicer, some are even worth writing about. It wasn't my day, my week, my month, my year, my life. God damn it. I never met another man I'd rather be. And even if that's a delusion, it's a lucky one. There are times when those eyes inside your brain stare back at you. Dogs and angels are not very far apart. Lighting new cigarettes, pouring more drinks. It has been a beautiful fight. Still is. We don't even ask happiness, just a little less pain. Great art is horseshit, buy tacos. Without literature, life is hell. I often carry things to read so that I will not have to look at the people. I went to the worst of bars hoping to get killed, but all I could do was to get drunk again. What a weary time those years were to have the desire and the need to live, but not the ability. My beer-drunk soul is sadder than all the dead Christmas trees of the world. Life's as kind as you let it be. The shortest distance between 2 points is often unbearable. Baby, I said, I'm a genius, but nobody knows it but me. You boys can keep your virgins, give me hot old women in high heels with asses that forgot to get old. There is always one woman to save you from another, and as that woman saves you, she makes ready to destroy. Sometimes you just have to pee in the sink. I stopped looking for a dream girl, I just wanted one that wasn't a nightmare. There is a loneliness in this world so great that you can see it in the slow movement of the hands of a clock. Poetry is what happens when nothing else can. Of course it's possible to love a human being if you don't know them too well. Those who escape hell, however, never talk about it, and nothing much bothers them after that. A love like that was a serious illness, an illness from which you never entirely recover. Being alone never felt right. Sometimes it felt good, but it never felt right. Find what you love and let it kill you. Real loneliness is not necessarily limited to when you are alone. If you're losing your soul and you know it, then you've still got a soul left to lose. You have to die a few times before you can really live. I wanted the whole world or nothing. My ambition is handicapped by laziness. What matters most is how well you walk through the fire. Some people never go crazy. What truly horrible lives they must lead. Do you hate people? I don't hate them, I just feel better when they're not around. Analogies, it is true, decide nothing, but they can make one feel more at home. Everyone owes nature a death. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. The medical profession is justly conservative. Human life should not be considered as the proper material for wild experiments. Neurosis is no excuse for bad manners. This is one race of people for whom psychoanalysis is of no use whatsoever. When one does not have what one wants, one must want what one has. Smoking is indispensable if one has nothing to kiss. In matters of sexuality we are at present, every one of us, ill or well, nothing but hypocrites. Man has, as it were, become a kind of prosthetic god. I never want to belong to any club that would have someone like me as a member. He who knows how to wait need make no concessions. Dream is the dreamer's own psychical act. I do not in the least underestimate bisexuality. I expect it to provide all further enlightenment. If children could, if adults knew. Where such men love they have no desire, and where they desire they cannot love. A religion, even if it calls itself a religion of love, must be hard and unloving to those who do not belong to it. The unconscious of one human being can react upon that of another without passing through the conscious. It is impossible to overlook the extent to which civilization is built up upon a renunciation of instinct. The dream is the liberation of the spirit from the pressure of external nature, a detachment of the soul from the fetters of matter. Conservatism, however, is too often a welcome excuse for lazy minds, loath to adapt themselves to fast-changing conditions. Words and magic were in the beginning one and the same thing, and even today words retain much of their magical power. It is a predisposition of human nature to consider an unpleasant idea untrue, and then it is easy to find arguments against it. Anatomy is destiny. How bold one gets when one is sure of being loved. America is the most grandiose experiment the world has seen, but, I am afraid, it is not going to be a success. In mourning it is the world which has become poor and empty, in melancholia it is the ego itself. Neurosis is the inability to tolerate ambiguity. The liberty of the individual is no gift of civilization. It was greatest before there was any civilization. Love in the form of longing and deprivation lowers the self-regard. You wanted to kill your father in order to be your father yourself. Now you are your father, but a dead father. Public self is a conditioned construct of the inner psychological self. There are no mistakes. I had thought about cocaine in a kind of daydream. Men are strong so long as they represent a strong idea, they become powerless when they oppose it. Dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. The ego is not master in its own house. My love is something valuable to me which I ought not to throw away without reflection. Men are more moral than they think and far more moral than they can imagine. Where it is, there shall ego be. Loneliness and darkness have just robbed me of my valuables. Love and work are the cornerstones of our humanness. The intention that man should be happy is not in the plan of creation. He does not believe that does not live according to his belief. The virtuous man contents himself with dreaming that which the wicked man does in actual life. The madman is a dreamer awake. Everywhere I go I find a poet has been there before me. Where does a thought go when it's forgotten? Immorality, no less than morality, has at all times found support in religion. A woman should soften but not weaken a man. Out of your vulnerabilities will come your strength. Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. What more could you ask of life? Aviation combined all the elements I loved. As civilization advances, man grows unconscious of the primitive elements of life. He is separated from them by his perfection of material techniques. Time is an abstraction which, on Earth, exists only for the human brain it has evolved. I began to feel that I lived on a higher plane than the skeptics of the ground, one that was richer because of its very association with the element of danger they dreaded, because it was freer of the earth to which they were bound. Now, all that I feared would happen has happened. We are at war all over the world, and we are unprepared for it from either a spiritual or a material standpoint. On a long flight, after periods of crisis and many hours of fatigue, mind and body may become disunited until at times they seem completely different elements. Sometimes, flying feels too godlike to be attained by man. Sometimes, the world from above seems too beautiful, too wonderful, too distant for human eyes to see. We talk about spreading democracy and freedom all over the world, but they are to us words rather than conditions. This is Earth again, the Earth where I've lived and now will live once more. I've been to eternity and back. I know how the dead would feel to live again. While my hand is on the stick, my feet on the rudder, and my eyes on the compass, this consciousness, like a winged messenger, goes out to visit the waves below, testing the warmth of water, the speed of wind, the thickness of intervening clouds. Instead of agitating for war, the Jewish groups in this country should be opposing it in every possible way, for they will be among the first to feel its consequences. These phantoms speak with human voices, friendly, vapor-like shapes, without substance, able to vanish or appear at will, to pass in and out through the walls of the fuselage as though no walls were there. By day, or on a cloudless night, a pilot may drink the wine of the gods, but it has an earthly taste. He's a god of the earth, like one of the Grecian deities who lives on worldly mountains and descended for intercourse with men. After reading accounts of minor accidents of light, it is little wonder that the average man would far rather watch someone else fly and read of the narrow escapes from death when some pilot has had a forced landing or a blowout, than to ride himself. In honoring the Wright brothers, it is customary and proper to recognize their contribution to scientific progress. But I believe it is equally important to emphasize the qualities in their pioneering life and the character in man that such a life produced. I can't get used to the ease with which one covers the world today. It's no longer an effort polar equator oceans continents, it's just a question of which way you point the nose of your plane. Wind, weather, power, load, gradually these elements stop churning in my mind. Then what am I of the body substance which I can see with my eyes and feel with my hands? True, the fragile bodies of his fellows do not weigh down his plane. True, the fretful minds of weaker men are missing from his crowded cabin. Why does one want to walk wings? Why force one's body from a plane to make a parachute jump? Why should man want to fly at all? People often ask these questions. Life is a culmination of the past, an awareness of the present, an indication of a future beyond knowledge, the quality that gives a touch of divinity to matter. Possibly everyone will travel by air in another 50 years. I'm not sure I like the idea of millions of planes flying around overhead. I love the sky's unbroken solitude. Man has risen so far above all other species that he competes in ways unique in nature. He fights by means of complicated weapons. He fights for ends remote in time. Lying under an acacia tree with the sound of the dawn around me, I realized more clearly the facts that man should never overlook. It is not the willingness to kill on the part of our soldiers which most concerns me. That is an inherent part of war. It was that quality that led me into aviation in the first place. It was a love of the air and sky and flying, the lure of adventure, the appreciation of beauty. We are disturbed about the effect of the Jewish influence on our press, radio, and motion pictures. It may become very serious. The life of an aviator seemed to me ideal. It involved skill. It brought adventure. It made use of the latest developments of science. We are compelled to work more hours per day, receive less pay per hour, pay more for what we buy, and receive less for what we sell. Is civilization progress? The challenge, I think, is clear, and, as clearly, the final answer will be given not by our amassing of knowledge. The idea of racial inferiority or superiority is foreign to me. I can't feel inferior or superior to another man because of race, or in any way antagonistic to him. Shut your eyes and you will know what I mean by thought entombed in darkness. Light comes through the senses, and not only through the sense of sight. The Jews are one of the principal forces attempting to lead the U.S. into the war. To be a true progressive, it is not sufficient to stand up and say that one believes in what has been promulgated as progressive principles. I'm not bound to be in aviation at all. I'm here only because I love the sky and flying more than anything else on earth. Of course there's danger, but a certain amount of danger is essential to the quality of life. What freedom lies in flying, what godlike power it gives to men. I lose all consciousness in this strong unmoral space crowded with beauty, pierced with danger. My aging body transmits an ageless life stream. Molecular and atomic replacement change life's composition. Molecules take part in structure and in training, countless trillions of them. Individuals are custodians of the life stream temporal manifestations of far greater being, forming from and returning to their essence like so many dreams. Any coward can sit in his home and criticize a pilot for flying into a mountain in a fog. But I would rather, by far, die on a mountainside than in bed. The manipulation of credit has been the most potent of all methods employed by financiers as a means of controlling commerce and fixing prices. If I were entering adulthood now instead of in the environment of 50 years ago, I would choose a career that kept me in touch with nature more than science. The forces of Hannibal, Drake, and Napoleon moved at best with the horse's gallop or the speed of wind on sail. Now, aviation brings a new concept of time and distance to the affairs of men. I believe that for permanent survival, man must balance science with other qualities of life, qualities of body and spirit as well as those of mind. I saw a fleet of fishing boats. I flew down almost touching the craft and yelled at them, asking if I was on the right road to Ireland. To a person in love, the value of the individual is intuitively known. Love needs no logic for its mission. Decades spent in contact with science and its vehicles have directed my mind and senses to areas beyond their reach. Aviation seems almost a gift from heaven to those Western nations who were already the leaders of their era, strengthening their leadership. Life without risks is not worth living. It may be interesting to note how many statesmen there are who believe that the cost of living can be reduced by making the people of other countries help to feed and clothe us. We are all consumers and should all be producers. In wilderness I sense the miracle of life. All mentally well-balanced persons know that we are not governed by the true principles of social justice when we make the main aim of our social existence the gaining of money. God made life simple. It is man who complicates it. Real freedom lies in wildness, not in civilization. Under the Federal Reserve Act, panics are scientifically created. The present panic is the first scientifically created one, worked out as we figured, a mathematical equation. Consciousness grows independent of the ordinary senses. From now on, depressions will be scientifically created. Success is not measured by what a man accomplishes, but by the opposition he has encountered and the courage with which he has maintained the struggle against overwhelming odds. In a time of war, truth is always replaced by propaganda. If I had to choose, I would rather have birds than airplanes. I grow aware of various forms of man and of myself. I am form and I am formless. I am life and I am matter, mortal and immortal. I am one and many myself and humanity in flux. A certain amount of danger is essential to the quality of life. I would rather live one day in Maui than 1 month in New York. Why should anyone think a white skin superior in evaluating the qualities of human life? I did not really admire a white skin so much myself. Did I not prefer the brown skin that came with exposure to the sun? Science, freedom, beauty, adventure, what more could you ask of life? 1 boy's a boy, 2 boys are half a boy, 3 boys are no boy at all. Is he alone who has courage on his right hand and faith on his left hand? Isn't it strange that we talk least about the things we think about most? I realize that if I had to choose, I would rather have birds than airplanes. I believe the risks I take are justified by the sheer love of the life I lead. I know there is infinity beyond ourselves. I wonder if there is infinity within. The improvement of our way of life is more important than the spreading of it. If we make it satisfactory enough, it will spread automatically. If we do not, no strength of arms can permanently oppose it. I learned that danger is relative, and the inexperience can be a magnifying glass. Life's values originate in circumstances over which the individual has no control. Science intensifies religious truth by cleansing it of ignorance and superstition. The individual is at the apex of his species' past, at the entrance to its future. The remedy for our social evils does not consist so much in changing the system of government as it does in increasing the general intelligence of the people so that they may learn how to govern. I don't believe in taking unnecessary risks, but a life without risk isn't worth living. Peace is a virgin who dare not show her face without strength, her father, for protection. I hope you either take up parachute jumping or stay out of single-motored airplanes at night. Living in dreams of yesterday, we find ourselves still dreaming of impossible future conquests. Pilots are drawn to flying because it's a perfect combination of science, romance, and adventure. When the president signs this act, the invisible government by the money power will be legalized. I live only in the moment in this strange unmoral space, crowded with beauty, pierced with danger. We can so reconstruct society that it will be self-perpetuating instead of as now, self-exhaustive. Democracy can only spring from within a nation itself, only from the hearts and minds of its people. If one took no chances, one would not fly at all. Safety lies in the judgment of the chances one takes. In wilderness I sense the miracle of life, and behind it our scientific accomplishments fade to trivia. Is cruelty a moral judgment if it is fundamental to forms of life? Who is man to say that the workings of nature, and therefore of the divine plan of which he himself is part, are cruel? When I watch species other than my own, their instinct's wisdom is what most impresses and disturbs me. Flying has torn apart the relationship of space and time. It uses our old clock but with new yardsticks. We cannot allow the natural passions and prejudices of other peoples to lead our country to destruction. At the end of the first half-century of engine-driven flight, we are confronted with the stark fact that the historical significance of aircraft has been primarily military and destructive. To a person in love, the value of the individual is intuitively known. Love needs no logic for its mission. I don't believe in taking foolish chances, but nothing can be accomplished if we don't take any chances at all. Our survival, the future of our civilization, possibly the existence of mankind, depends on American leadership. But accuracy means something to me. It's vital to my sense of values. I've learned not to trust people who are inaccurate. Every aviator knows that if mechanics are inaccurate, aircraft crash. Whatever a man imagines he can attain, if he doesn't become too arrogant and encroach on the rights of the gods. Life is like a landscape. You live in the midst of it, but can describe it only from the vantage point of distance. At first you can stand the spotlight in your eyes. Then it blinds you. Others can see you, but you cannot see them. I have seen the science I worshipped, and the aircraft I loved, destroying the civilization I expected them to serve. Man is a mixture of desires that extend beyond his knowledge and often result in action conflicting with rationality. Man must feel the earth to know himself and recognize his values. God made life simple. It is man who complicates it. After my death, the molecules of my being will return to the earth and sky. They came from the stars. I am of the stars. Not long ago, when I was a student in college, just flying an airplane seemed a dream. But that dream turned into reality. Unless science is controlled by a greater moral force, it will become the Antichrist prophesied by the early Christians. I grew up as a disciple of science. I know its fascination. I have felt the godlike power man derives from his machines. Air power is new to all our countries. It brings advantages to some and weakens others. It calls for readjustment everywhere. The new law will create inflation whenever the trusts want inflation. From now on, depressions will be scientifically created. The essence of life, I concluded, did not lie in the material. It penetrated, but was not bound to, the physical world of science. I decided that if I could fly for 10 years before I was killed in a crash, it would be a worthwhile trade for an ordinary lifetime. Whether outwardly or inwardly, whether in space or time, the farther we penetrate the unknown, the vaster and more marvelous it becomes. A great industrial nation may conquer the world in the span of a single life, but its Achilles heel is time. Its children, what of them? Without death there would be no awareness of life, and the recurring selection and renewal that has caused life's progress would be ended. It is the greatest shot of adrenaline to be doing what you have wanted to do so badly. You almost feel like you could fly without the plane. I was astonished at the effect my successful landing in France had on the nations of the world. To me, it was like a match lighting a bonfire. The greatest danger to this country lies in their large ownership and influence in our motion pictures, our press, our radio, and our government. I owned the world that hour as I rode over it. Free of the earth, free of the mountains, free of the clouds, but how inseparably I was bound to them. What makes human power erupt like a volcano? What destroys it? The civilizations of Rome, Greece, Egypt, and China were all eruptions from a human core.
Everyone has a particular God-given ability. It seems to me self-evident that we cannot have capitalism without capital and, very importantly, that the ultimate source of all economic capital is nature's capital. I'm a dangerous person because I mind about things. I think we'd be very foolish to expect that we can just import everything from somewhere else and imagine that that's going to last forever and ever and ever. There is very good evidence indeed that one of the major reasons for this horror in Syria was a drought that lasted for about 5 or 6 years, which meant that huge numbers of people in the end had to leave the land. It is baffling, I must say, that in our modern world we have such blind trust in science and technology that we all accept what science tells us about everything, until, that is, it comes to climate science. I think we're going to find, with climate change and everything else, things like global warming and goodness knows what else and the cost of fuel for a start, that things are going to become very complicated. As human beings we suffer from an innate tendency to jump to conclusions, to judge people too quickly and to pronounce them failures or heroes without due consideration of the actual facts and ideals of the period. My Rainforests project has 3 main elements. Firstly, to determine how much funding the rainforest countries need to reorientate their economies so that the trees are worth more alive than dead. Why can't we have those curves and arches that express feeling in design? What is wrong with them? Why has everything got to be vertical, straight, unbending, only at right angles, and functional? I find myself born into this particular position. I'm determined to make the most of it. And to do whatever I can to help. And I hope I leave things behind a little bit better than I found them. There is no doubt that we live in an age of unprecedented, and sometimes terrifying, technological advance where the speed of advance so often outstrips the necessary ethical considerations. This was one of those special occasions when I could actually feel the inner appreciation of the beauty of the moment passing like an electric current through the brush in my hand. We have spent the best part of the past century enthusiastically testing the world to utter destruction, not looking closely enough at the long-term impact our actions will have. Fast food may appear to be cheap food and, in the literal sense it often is, but that is because huge social and environmental costs are being excluded from the calculations. Humility is to make a right estimate of oneself. It is no humility for a man to think less of himself than he ought, though it might rather puzzle him to do that. You have to give this much to the Luftwaffe. When it knocked down our buildings it did not replace them with anything more offensive than rubble. We did that. All I'm saying is that there is a price to be paid at the sharp end. Environmentally and everywhere else. For the food that is produced in a particular way. A large number of us have developed a feeling that architects tend to design houses for the approval of fellow architects and critics, not for the tenants. We should be treating, I think, the whole issue of climate change and global warming with a far greater degree of priority than I think is happening now. Something as curious as the monarchy won't survive unless you take account of people's attitudes. After all, if people don't want it, they won't have it. Any difficulties which the world faces today will be as nothing compared to the full effects which global warming will have on the worldwide economy. If your children want to alter society, listen to their reasons and the idealism behind them. Don't crush them with some clever remark straight away. It is frightening how dependent on drugs we are all becoming and how easy it is for doctors to prescribe them as the universal panacea for our ills. I think we need to recover the depth, the subtlety, the generosity of imagination, the respect for wisdom that so marked Islam in its great ages. To avert disaster, we have not only to teach men to make things but to teach them to have complete moral control over what they make. As technology advances at an alarming pace, the place of drawing remains as valid as ever in the creation of art and architecture. Climate change should be seen as the greatest challenge to face man and treated as a much bigger priority in the United Kingdom. Forests are the world's air conditioning system, the lungs of the planet, and we are on the verge of switching it off. The whole imposing edifice of modern medicine is like the celebrated Tower of Pisa, slightly off balance. We don't, in a sensible world, want to hand on an increasingly dysfunctional world to our grandchildren. I was totally absorbed. I was in another world, or another dimension. All sense of time evaporated. The less people know about what is really going on, the easier it is to wield power and authority. There's nothing like a jolly good disaster to get people to start doing something. If you chuck away too many things, you end up discovering there was value in them. The price of apparently cheap food is costing nothing less than the earth. I believe passionately that everyone has a particular God-given ability. I sometimes wonder if 2/3 of the globe is covered in red carpet. I learned the way a monkey learns, by watching its parents. To get the best results you must talk to your vegetables. All the time I feel I must justify my existence. Conservation must become before recreation. Your greatest achievement is to love me. Be neither too remote nor too familiar. Business is recognizing the role it can play in combating climate change. Forests are in fact the world's air conditioning system, the very lungs of the planet, and help to store the largest body of fresh water on the planet, essential to produce food for our planet's growing population. If English is spoken in heaven, God undoubtedly employs Cranmer as his speechwriter. The world's forests need to be seen for what they are, giant global utilities, providing essential public services to humanity on a vast scale. The simple fact is that the world is not paying for the services the forests provide.
Of the people is the abolition of religion. Workers of the world unite, you have nothing to lose but your chains. The alienation of man thus appeared as the fundamental evil of capitalist society. All science would be superfluous if the outward appearance and the essence of things directly coincided. Capital is dead labor, which, vampire-like, lives only by sucking living labor, and lives the more labor it sucks. Society as a whole is more and more splitting up into two great hostile camps. Philosophers have hitherto only interpreted the world in various ways, The point, however, is to change it. Every opinion based on scientific criticism I welcome. Machinery which is not used is not capital. Nobody, not even a musician of the future, can live upon future products. Ignorance never yet helped anybody. Wages are a direct consequence of estranged labor, and estranged labor is the direct cause of private property. The more of himself man attributes to God, the less he is left in himself. As individuals express their life, so they are. Merely quantitative differences, beyond a certain point, pass into qualitative changes. The production of too many useful things results in too many useless people. The ideas of the ruling class are in every epoch the ruling ideas. I am a machine condemned to devour books. Men make their own history, but they do not make it as they please. The tradition of past generations weighs like the Alps on the brains of the living. The best thing for rich people to do is become Batman. Necessity is blind until it becomes conscious. Freedom is the consciousness of necessity. The ruling ideas of each age have ever been the ideas of its ruling class. Moments are the elements of profit. Labor in the white skin can never free itself as long as labor in the black skin is branded. In proportion, therefore, as the repulsiveness of the work increases, the wage decreases. Communism is the riddle of history solved, and it knows itself to be the solution. The proletarians have nothing to loose but their chains. They have a world to win. To be radical is to grasp things by the root. Go on, get out. Last words are for fools who haven't said enough. Reason has always existed, but not always in a reasonable form. I am nothing, but I must be everything. The last capitalist we hang shall be the one who sold us the rope.